The Triad of Human Health. Simply put, the Triad of Health, it is a triangle of 3 points, each point representing a certain system of your health. And that triangle exists on a wheel, a rotating wheel. And when you create momentum and you pluck that one angle, it spins the triad. And the first point pushes the second point, and the second point pushes the third point, and the third point pushes the first point, and they spin. And the more momentum, the more you pluck, the more momentum you put on that spinning triad. This raises the frequency of human health, right? You can actually measure the electromagnetic frequency of a person's health. Or you can measure the electromagnetic frequency in a person's body and get a really strong indicator of what their overall health is like, right? And that's not like kind of woo-woo science, spiritual stuff. This is like actually a mathematical, scientifically proven thing, right? And basically what that electromagnetic energy measures is the activity of your nervous system, right? How much acid is being pushed out, how much alkaline formation is being generated inside the body, the frequency at which your cells vibrate, right? Your cells, they move around, they're really active, they're doing things, and etc., right? And all of that gets taken into account according to your electromagnetic frequency, right? Brain activity, heart activity, your whole nervous system, signals going up and down, right? Your vagus nerve, etc. This even contributes to the amount of calories you burn in a day, right? So people who are dealing with chronic health issues, if you're having a certain level of inflammation over a very prolonged period of time, essentially what happens is your metabolism slows down in order to conserve energy. Because battling stress is very energy intensive. So if you're struggling to lose weight, a large part of that is because your metabolism has been grinded down in order to conserve energy to stay in the fight. Right? So when you're chronically inflamed, it's very difficult to lose weight because of this, as a result. So if you are dealing with obesity, you are like 5'2", 5'3", 230 pounds or so. It's not because you eat too many calories. You don't actually eat calories, but that's an entirely different conversation. Where calories is a measure of thermogenic burn. It is not a measure of solid matter that you consume. You don't consume a calorie. But you know, for some people, or a lot of people, if your weight gain is a result of chronic inflammation, right, is a result of chronic illness, and cutting calories is not going to be the thing to do it, right? You actually have to heal your body. You have to increase your body's frequency. And there's a variety of different mechanisms to do that, and I'll be talking about some of those tonight. So the first point is your blood flow and your blood quality, right? That's the first point. Blood flow and blood quality are two separate and distinct things. And the reason for that is because your blood flow is more of a measure of the infrastructure of your vascular system. So all of your blood capillaries, arteries, vein, your heart, all of that type of stuff, the infrastructure that your blood flows through. So when we talk about blood flow, we're actually talking about the infrastructure, the dilation of the vascular system, the flexibility and durability of the vascular system, right? This softness and the stretchiness of the tissues that make up your vascular system. That's what that is. Blood quality is a measure of red blood cell count, how many healthy red blood cells you have, the size of your red blood cells, right? Your blood plasma level. Do you have an adequate amount of blood plasma? And then white blood cell count. If your white blood cell count is too high, you're very susceptible to autoimmune disorders. And that's usually a result of chronic inflammation to the point where your body is presenting as if it is fighting off an infection. Now, when you're fighting off an infection, white blood cell count rises in order to fight off whatever you're being infected by. The problem is that white blood cell count cannot be sustained so high, because if it is, then all of your healthy cells then become potential what's that word? Potential collateral damage. There's the word, collateral damage. So you can break out in rashes and hives and all types of stuff. You can have some nasty stuff happen to you as a result of what people call autoimmune. When people talk about autoimmune, it basically is your immune system attacking your body. Right? And one of the ways that your autoimmune system attacks your body is literally through white blood cells being way too aggressive and way too active. So this can be anything from like lupus to, type 1 diabetes. The destruction of your beta cells in your pancreas as a result, right? So that's blood quality. It's a measure of your actual blood. Now, when you have an adequate amount of red blood cells, that facilitates the maximum oxygen intake or optimal oxygen intake in order to properly hydrate and oxygenate your cells. And if you adequately hydrate and oxygenate your cells, this optimizes things like fat loss, recovery, hormonal balance, all these type of things. Because your body runs on oxygen, water, and glucose. These are the three ingredients that energy and conversion is facilitated, right? The second point is your pH level and alkaline forming elements of your body, right? Alkalizing your body and your pH balance. Now, your pH balance is basically a scale that measures acid to alkaline. So it's a 14-point scale, right? So you have 0 to 14, and right in the middle is a 7, which is neutral. Now, what you want to do is your body should always be slightly more alkaline, right? In between a 7.4 and a 7.8, right? Somewhere around there. Or even between a 7.2 and a 7.8, somewhere around there. But 7.4 is like the sweet spot. Right? Alkaline forming. And the reason why you need to be more alkaline is because being more alkaline is the thing that creates momentum to push out acid, which is the byproduct of energy expenditure. So like, let's say, for example, you get a Duracell battery. What is that? It's an alkaline battery. The alkaline part is the part that facilitates and produces the electricity in order to power a given device. As those alkaline elements are oxidized and burned through, you then end up with more acid, right? Or battery acid, which is very toxic and is pretty much a waste product that accumulates as a result of energy expenditure. Now, that acid has to be recycled into more alkaline forming elements, but the thing is that a Duracell battery per se, those elements on their own cannot rebuild themselves in order to generate more power. Because in order to do that, that either requires a recharging from another substance or requires that battery to have some type of organic compound or some type of organic makeup to it. The reason why we as human beings, we recharge and we will last a lot longer is because we have a metabolism. And that metabolism gives us feedback and regenerates us, right? Whereas the battery does not, right? We have all these processes to take acid and then convert back into alkaline forming elements and produce ATP to power our cells, all this type of stuff. It's a loop. Batteries, not so much, right? Or your conventional Duracell battery, like a AA or something. It doesn't really work that way. So managing your pH balance, being slightly more alkaline, right? And in the midpoint of the 7s, right? 7.4, 7.6, somewhere around there. The third point is your digestive tract and the gut microbiome, right? Your digestive tract is the infrastructure of your digestive system, right? So stomach, intestines, colon, all this type of stuff, right? And all of the materials that make up that digestive tract, the infrastructure, similar to what I was talking about with blood flow, right? Infrastructure. So that's your digestive tract. And then you have the gut microbiome. The gut microbiome is the environment of your gut, right? It's all of these little microorganisms that live inside your gut, preferably really in your lower gut, right? In the colon is mostly where these things are found, right? And you have trillions of these little microorganisms, this bacteria, or what we call in the scientific community sometimes is gut flora. All these diverse little microorganisms, and they're all colorful and different shapes and all types of stuff. And They almost look kind of like bioluminescent and all that. Really pretty looking stuff. Weird. Some of it's pretty, some of it's weird. Some of it's kind of spooky looking, etc. They're spiky, some are tubular, some are like little tennis balls. All different types of bacteria, right? And if you were to take all of them and you were to put them on a scale and measure them, they would actually weigh more than your actual brain. So on average, let's say if the human brain on average is like 3 pounds, the bacteria in your gut microbiome is like 4.5 pounds. Right? So just an interesting fun fact there. So when your gut is referred to as your second brain, well, not only is it your second brain, but it also can be your dominant brain, or the brain that dominates your parasympathetic nervous system and largely influences your sympathetic nervous system and your conscious thoughts. This is the reason why when I've had people who suffer from anxiety and depression, we put them on a diet plan, they can get off of their anxiety and depression medications, right, which I've done for several people. Is because we nurture and take care of their gut microbiome, and that ultimately influences their brain chemistry, reduces the inflammation that's going on top, right, and it improves the signaling through the vagus nerve from your head brain to your gut brain and back, right? So those are the 3 points. So even if you used to choose one of those points, let's say I'm going to start with blood flow and blood quality, and I am going to adopt foods and different chemical compounds that exist in those foods, herbs, spices, exercise, etc., and I'm going to improve my blood quality and my infrastructure of my vascular system. And I'm going to pluck it, I'm going to get it moving. That would then improve my body's ability to balance my pH level and alkalize my body. Because if I improve my blood flow and my blood quality, this improves oxygen intake, which then improves my body's ability to alkalize. Because you cannot alkalize your body without oxygen. You cannot alkalize your body without water. Right? So that oxygen and that water combines inside your body with the vitamins and minerals from your food and the amino acids from your food, and that becomes alkaline forming. So when somebody like a Dr. Sebi talks about an alkaline diet, this is what he's talking about. A diet that is geared towards alkalizing your body, and if the goal is alkalizing your body, that would also improve blood flow. So even if you were to skip point 1 and pluck point 2, that would still positively impact blood flow and blood quality. So it doesn't really necessarily matter which point of the triad you start with, right? But when you improve one, it trickles down to all the others, and you start to spinning. Okay. Gut microbiome. The gut microbiome is the gatekeeper to any of this stuff happening. Understand that without your gut microbiome, nothing happens. Okay, if your gut microbiome dies, so do you. Right? So what's funny is your gut microbiome lives inside of you, and you live inside your gut microbiome. It's a symbiotic relationship, right? There's this codependency. It's very fascinating stuff. So when you eat certain foods, every food you eat is going to cause your gut microbiome to respond a specific way. Your gut bacteria, your gut flora are picky eaters. This is why it's important to diversify your diet, right? So, earlier in the day I'll have some bananas, I'll have some kiwis, I'll have some apples, some grapes, I'll have a variety of citrus fruits, I'll have watermelon, and then I'll have different herbs and spices in my herbal teas and things that I drink throughout the day. And I'm getting all of these varieties of different antioxidants, right? Carotenoids, polyphenols, even the tannins and things like this, the prebiotic fibers, the apple pectin, right? The resveratrol and the grapes, etc. And all of these things influence the environment of my gut microbiome. Now, what happens is the digestion starts in my stomach first. Well, actually, no, technically it starts in your mouth first, signals your brain, and then your brain sends signals down the chain throughout your gut to get your body ready for digestion. This is why it's important to actually chew your food. So juicing is great, but chew your food. You also got to make room for that too, right? Sit down, take a moment from your busy schedule, and sit and chew your food. The food you eat hits your stomach, and then boom, stuff starts happening. Your stomach starts mashing things up. Nutrients then gets leached from the foods you eat. And then that food has potassium and magnesium and manganese and water, and all these things help to balance the pH level of your stomach. So it's not too alkaline, but it's not too acidic. It's just right. And then the water from the foods, like in this bowl, for example, or a big bowl of watermelon, there's all of this water and whatnot, and it helps to hydrate your lungs. And it's important to hydrate your lungs because if you keep your lungs hydrated, it's easier for your lungs to expel carbon dioxide. So, for example, when a person has asthma, it's not that they're struggling to inhale oxygen, it's their lungs are struggling to exhale carbon dioxide. It's a two-way street, and you can't have one lane blocked and the other one open. They both have to be open. Right? They're codependent. You can't breathe in a bunch of oxygen and not release any of the carbon dioxide, right? If you try to do that, it's going to be a real struggle, right? So, having these hydrating foods, they open up your lungs. They make it easier to breathe. They make it easier to absorb oxygen into your lungs, right? And so now you get more oxygen saturation in your bloodstream, just even in the eating process, before the nutrients even really hits your bloodstream necessarily, right? There's all this preparation that happens. And then if you actually wear like a Fitbit or something and you eat and then you watch your heart rate as you eat, you'll see like your actual heart rate will start to tick up a little bit. It won't skyrocket, but it'll elevate a little bit. Because your metabolism is getting active, it's getting ready, right? Every fiber of your being is sitting here like this. Yeah, that's right. You got all your cells in your body like this. Right? Let's get busy. Let's do it, right? Now, if you're struggling with chronic illness, your body may not feel like that because eating is hard work, digestion is a lot of work, it's energy intensive, etc. Right? So if you have a low appetite, that's why. Because your body's battling all this other stuff, and then there's food, and your body's like, all right, so we got to switch gears and go from fighting to then digestion. It's now you're split between these two different things, right? So the hardest part is getting started, but I don't want to divert too much from the original point. So you open up your lungs, you balance your gut, your stomach environment, and then that soluble fiber in your stomach that helps to coat the lining of your stomach and then heal and reinforce your stomach lining. And then the nutrients start to slowly seep into your bloodstream, and all of the nutrients from the foods shuttle through your bloodstream to all of your cells, and then all of the things that need to be parked in your liver, like fructose, in order to be converted into glucose later, goes to your liver. Digestive enzymes, all this type of stuff. Antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals help to replenish and repair your liver, expedite the fat burning process, so that you can actually, if you got a fatty liver and you're eating foods like this, it helps to reverse fatty liver. So you can really start oxidizing some of that fat and putting it to use and burning it off and getting it moving. A fatty liver is essentially it's liver congestion. It's like a stuffy nose, but in your liver, right? Essentially. It's like having a fupa, like a stomach fupa, but just on your liver, right? That's essentially what that's like. And when you have a fatty liver, pretty much it affects every single facet of your health, right? It affects every organ in your body. Okay. Fatty liver can create heart attacks. It can create gut health issues, leaky gut. It can create what's that called? A stroke, right? Aneurysms, diabetes, etc. Okay, it could crush your hormonal balance. You can have low testosterone as a result, etc. Right? In fact, when people have excess cholesterol, a lot of times because of fatty liver. It's not really a medication that you can take to fix that problem, because as long as you'll have a fatty liver, you'll still have that problem. So decalcifying and unclogging your liver, that's the thing primarily that's done by your food choices, right? Now your foods, they improve your health from the top down and the bottom up. You eat foods, they do all this magic inside your stomach, pour nutrients into your bloodstream, healing elements into your bloodstream, and then the food slides down your digestive tract, your intestines, and then they hit your colon. And then your colon is phase 2. Because in your colon, all the prebiotic fibers, nutrients, things like that, then get received by your gut flora, right? That gut microbiota, all the little bacteria in there. And they start sending all types of messages to your brain, throughout your nervous system. They start commanding your organs to do things. They start commanding your body to build new cells, build more bone mass, build more muscle tissue, repair this connective tissue, reduce this swelling, reduce those pain pathways, open this up, close that up, right? So your gut bacteria are like air traffic control. They're security guards. They're a manufacturing base, right? They're engineers. All this type of stuff, right? They're communicators. It's like, some of them even act like a broadband internet. They improve the signaling back and forth. When I talk about signaling, the reason why the signaling is so important is because when you eat foods, when the serotonin from that food hits your gut, that serotonin, when received in your gut, will then send a signal to your brain, and then that's when the serotonin and melatonin conversion happens in your brain. And then when you turn the lights off at night and go to sleep, this is how you get good quality sleep. It's the signaling from your gut to create that melatonin up top so that when the lights go off, your brain goes, oh, darkness, time to go to sleep, right? So a lot of this is run by your food. I'm laying a lot on y'all tonight, I understand that, right? But I'm going to put this up for the live stream replay so people will be able to watch this later on, right? Because the people in my Discord and whatnot. So, I'm eating an apple. Apples have something called apple pectin. Apple pectin ferments in the lower gut, releases something called short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids expedite the process of fat oxidation. This is needed in order to burn fat to use it for energy. When you have those short-chain fatty acids being pulled and produced from the fibers from all the fruits and things that you eat, like those apples and grapes, etc., pears and all of this, these fibrous foods, especially dark leafy greens, you'll have a constant food source that produces that short chain fatty acids, which are one of the many things that expedite the fat burning process. Now, we focus a lot on fat burn when it comes to belly fat and things like that, but some of the most important belly fat that happens is the belly fat, is the fat that's stuck inside your organs or on top of your organs. We're talking visceral fat. We're talking ectopic fat, which are fatty lipids that are stored inside cells that aren't really supposed to be accumulating there. Visceral fat being the fat that's caked on top of your organs. You start breaking through some of that, right? And then fat has these phases in it. You got white fat, beige fat, brown fat. And the fat gets darker the more oxidized it gets and the more loosened up it gets. The white fat is the unsightly fat that's so difficult to get rid of. So you got to soften it up, you got to loosen it up, you got to heat it up. You got to oxidize it in the body so that it can get mobile and get ready to bring to the front line to be used for energy. So there's like a conveyor belt of available fat to use for energy that your body has. So you got cold storage, warm storage, and hot storage ready to deploy, right? And that's essentially how fat metabolism works, essentially. So those are the 3 points. Now, as an additional bonus, I'm pivoting away from that. But before I do that, let me catch up with some of y'all in the comments here. Folks, double tap the screen to like the stream because we only got 5K likes going on in here. That's what happens when I don't pause and I start going heavy into things. What he is saying does not line up with the word of God. I don't know how to respond to that. The Bible taught us how the digestive tract works. Yo, does the Bible say anything about alkalizing your body? I'm kind of curious about that. I'm saying Bible too because I don't know what God that person is subscribed to. I'll catch the replay. The game dog won't be in that. What's the game dog? Yeah, because you're laying on a lot on us tonight, but thank you. I appreciate it. It's good stuff. Yeah, yeah. You got to forgive me. I start nerding out. Okay, I geek out on here. I learned so much from your live, for sure. Thanks for tuning in. That's right. Let's double tap up that stream. 1 serving per meal. All these can be achieved by eating the right amount of all God creates. We got a lot of. We got a couple fake rats in here. Game Dog. Nobody's asking you. Who's Game Dog? Is Game Dog in here playing dog games? Alright. Are your grapes seeded? Some of them. Yo, Donan, you have executive authority to and Donan and Gigi, y'all got executive authority to get your block on if people are acting up. How would you alkaline your body? Well, I'm gonna get into that. Is D3 bad for your body? No. All right, so let me pick back up here. Let me get back on it. All right. Got my labs back. HDL is 79. Just start taking D3 vitamins, start having muscle pain. I don't think D3 would cause muscle pain. It's probably something else going on there. You probably have to take a look at the combination of, or the totality of all your habits. Okay, so now moving on to the stress, inflammation, escalation ladder. The stress, inflammation, escalation ladder. It's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? I need both hands to explain this. So, when something happens to you, let's say a bad thing happens to you, this results in stress. So your stress ticks up. Your body responds with an inflammatory response. Inflammation ticks up to meet the stress. Inflammation is any activation of the immune system. Your immune system will respond to whatever stress you undertake. Now, what's supposed to happen is your stress is supposed to drop and inflammation drops along with it. Now, if your stress hikes up, inflammation meets here. If you go through more stress, stress climbs again, inflammation reaches here. Right? It's kind of like spraining the same ankle twice. Like imagine you sprain an ankle, boom, mass stress, inflammation response. Inflammation is the swelling you get in your ankle and the stiffness and the pain. Right? Now, if you re-sprain the ankle, now you get even more stress and then there's even more inflammation. That's kind of what that looks like. Now, chronic stress works a little bit different because spraining an ankle is very acute. Chronic is more subtle and more long-term. So, for example, like the development of type 2 diabetes. This can happen over a period of 10 years. Right? So, if you're diabetic, it's not from something that you started doing within the past year. It's something that you've been doing for a period of several years down the line. So this is a long time in the making, right? So you go year after year on the stress, inflammation, escalation ladder. This ladder is color-coded. Green, yellow, orange, red, right? So you go through stress, boom, you're in a little bit of a yellow, inflammation reaches. If you re-sprain the ankle proverbially, now you're in orange, inflammation. A lot of people, what happens is they sustain the orange until they come up with the flu or a cold or something, and then they're, boom, red, inflammation, and then they start getting all types of weird symptoms. Or even if you don't get sick, you don't get the cold or anything, but you start developing a food allergy that you didn't used to have. right? So you eat a thing and then you break out in hives. So you're like, what the hell, hives? What's happening here? Or something goes off the rails, right? Like high blood pressure it can be, or kidney disease of some form, right? But eventually this all happens from sustaining that high position on the stress, inflammation, escalation ladder, right? When it comes to reversing any chronic illness, the thing that has to happen is you have to work your way back down the ladder. Okay? And you have to work your way back down the ladder consistently. So you can't like go from red to orange and then yellow and then pack back up to orange and then red, because you've reset the escalation. And then so a lot of people, what people do is they're really consistent with their health goals for like a few weeks or even a month. And they get down into the yellow and they're like, man, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm in the yellow. I'm feeling good. I get comfortable. Then they start slacking a little bit and then they end up in the orange. And they're like, oh no, I'm in the orange. What's happening? And they'll try to do things and get back down into the yellow. And then something else will happen and they're back up into the orange. And if they get sick, then they end up in the red. And then they're like, oh no, I got to work back down. And then they get into the orange and then back to the yellow again. But they never get to the green. Not only do you have to get to the green, you got to stay in the green. Getting into the green and staying into the green is how you reverse chronic illness. Right? Let's take a look at your blood sugar. Time spent in range versus time spent out of range. Green is in range, yellow is a little out of range, red is like the danger sign. As you improve your insulin sensitivity, as you reduce your inflammation, you get in range, you're in the green. And then you get deeper and deeper and deeper into the green. And then your fasting glucose levels look really good. They're like in the 90s and 80s, right? But if you get sick, something happens, then you get into a little bit into the yellow or even in the red again, right? It's not because you ate something that had too much sugar in it. It's the inflammation. It's the stress. All of it kind of relates back to the chronic stress, inflammation, escalation ladder. It's a movement-based thing. So you got to keep those color codes in your mind and get into the green and stay in the green. Okay. So you have a few mechanisms. Sleep quality, exercise, food choices, and things like herbal teas and spices as well as juices. These are some of the primary mechanisms that you can use. And then there's other things that are also extremely important that have nothing to do with what you eat or drink, right? It could be deep breathing exercises. Right? It could be cold therapy, exposure to cold, whether it be cold water, ice bath, or deliberately underdressing and then going outside for a run. Right? And being in a cold weather causes you to shiver, to create more thermogenic energy, which then causes you to breathe more, which you get more oxygen. And then in order to combat the cold, that terrible, uncomfortable cold feeling, you have to actually slow down your breathing and breathe deep and embrace the cold and relax your body, right? And that's a nervous system thing where you override your nervous system with this cold, right? It's like this shock therapy. And then you come into range, you get your breathing under control, and you feel better, and then the cold don't really feel that cold anymore. But when you come into the heat, it feels amazing. Like if you've been outside in the cold for a long period of time, and you adjust to the cold where it doesn't feel that cold anymore, when you come inside to the warmth, it feels amazing. Right? Exercise does the same thing. You do a rigorous workout, your heart rate's up, you're sweating, blood pumping to all the muscles and whatnot. When you stop exercising and you sit down and you relax, you take a shower, you stretch, you foam roll, whatever the case is, you go for a massage, and you really come down from the stress of that acute workout, it feels amazing. And your body's pumping endorphins and all types of stuff, and then you get this rush of dopamine and serotonin, all these feel-good hormones. And while you're experiencing that good feeling, the cortisol in your body drops down. Your body starts burning more fat, picks up the glucose you feel in your body, right? Feeds all of your cells. And then as you gain your breath from the intense workout, you start maximizing oxygen intake. You're no longer out of breath. Now the fat burn process really starts ramping up after the workout. Not so much during, but after. And then you eat. You get like a jamba juice, a green juice, or you drink some tea where you've got moringa in the tea. You got a pinch of cayenne pepper in the tea, along with the ginger powder in the tea, right? And so then you got all of the antioxidants in the moringa leaf powder. You got the antioxidants from the cayenne pepper, and then you got the antioxidants from the ginger. And the reason why I bring up a combination like that is because a combination like that, it improves your glucose metabolism. So now this improves skeletal muscle insulin sensitivity, which means you get more glucose intake into your muscle cells, right? So your body's breaking down fat, converting into glucose, and that glucose is being shuttled into your muscle tissue. This is what we want, right? This optimizes recovery, right? So then your nervous system feels less burnt out, right? You get leveled out. The cayenne pepper, the ginger starts opening up your lungs. You breathe easier. You don't feel so lightheaded. Your chest and your belly feel warm from the warmth of the ginger and the cayenne pepper, because those are spicy things. They're hot, they're spicy. And what does that do? That creates that thermogenic energy. It metabolizes fat. It expedites the fat metabolism process. So now you're trading fat for available glucose, and then your body is optimized to park that glucose inside the cells where it's supposed to be. You now flip the switch from being insulin resistant to being insulin sensitive. And this reflects in your blood sugar numbers. This reflects in muscle mass gain, bone mass gain, right? Lean tissue density. This is how it happens. Just from that workout and that herbal tea loaded up with those spices and that hotness, right? Cayenne pepper is actually, and ginger as well, they open up your lungs. So if you got like an upper respiratory issue, you got asthma, you got COVID or whatever the case is, the algorithm's probably going to ding me even more for saying that. But it needs to be said. You optimize your lung capacity, lung functionality, you get more oxygen, and that in turn alkalizes your body. Right? And then you have some apple and some grapes. You probably have some roasted cashews, some Brazil nuts, things like that, right? When you pair the warmth and spiciness of the tea, and then you have some beautiful sweet fruit along with it, or right after it, oh, it's a great contrast. Bitter and sweet, right? Bitter and sweet is where wellness becomes complete. I should put that on a shirt. What I just explained, that process is chronic illness reversal. You can use food as a drug. You eat some apples, you eat some grapes, you eat some watermelon, you eat some cantaloupe, you eat some honeydew. Every hit you take, it brings the stress down. It brings the stress down with the vitamin C, the B vitamins, the magnesium, the potassium, the water, the antioxidants, the fiber. All of those things specifically drive down stress, drive down inflammation. This will reverse your trajectory. You go from climbing up the stress, inflammation, escalation ladder to climbing back down. You go from red, orange, yellow into green, and you stay in green, and you live your best life in green. Right? This is the key to reversing chronic illness. This works on a scientific chemical level, biochemical level. It also works in a universal principle level. When you are inflamed, your body is at war, fighting something, fighting against something that shouldn't be. Your body knows it's wrong. It's trying to correct course. When you are at war, you cannot build. You cannot build until the war ends. You cannot build until you enter a position of peace. You cannot build until the war ends. And the war doesn't end until the stress and the inflammation come down and you get into the green. Now there's a gradient because your body will gradually build as you come down on the escalation ladder. So as you come down on the escalation ladder, rebuilding and rejuvenation comes up. It's on the uptick. And vice versa. So as you're climbing up, your body's breaking down, deteriorating, and then as you climb down, your body's rebuilding and regenerating. Right? So there's this inverse correlation between these two things. So essentially, what you have to do is live in a life of peace. And you got to figure out how to get there. And that has to be your primary focus, because when you are battling chronic illness, your number one goal in everything becomes defeating that chronic illness. Everything else takes a backseat to that. This is your life we're talking about here. Let me catch up with y'all in the comments here. Jamaican dog bush tea helps with fertility. I don't think I've ever heard of dog bush tea. Really enjoying this lecture. Oh, I'm over here lecturing. Doesn't turmeric help with inflammation? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. What foods are good for the eyes? Papaya. Sweet potato. Cantaloupe. Pumpkin seed kernels. Walnuts. Brazil nuts. Carrots. Yakmara, thank you for the weights. Appreciate you coming through, sharing the love on the screen, sending me some love on the stream here. Folks, double tap the screen to like the stream. Let's get some tapping going. How do you keep the weight and muscle on? I keep the inflammation down. And I keep my resistance training up. So I'm doing resistance training 6 times a week. Monday through Saturday. 6 days straight for about 20 to 30 minutes at a time for each session. That's all it takes to build the muscle. I train with body weight and resistance bands. Oh, have I heard about Jamaican dog bush tea? I haven't heard of it, but I can definitely look that up. Why people drink hot tea are prone to esophageal cancer. I would have to see the studies on that. I'm not aware of that statistic. So I would have to see, is there an actual study that shows the link between herbal teas and esophageal cancer? And then I have to see what type of teas are they drinking, and then what does their diet look like. Folks, I am a full-time nutritionist and fitness coach. Pretty much my life's mission is to help as many people as possible to reverse chronic illness. Reversing chronic illness is my wheelhouse, right? This is my main trade. This is what I do full-time. So if you're trying to reverse chronic illnesses, you're trying to heal yourself, get healthy, definitely give me a follow. Go to my profile and hit the link in my bio. I got a few options. So you can either request a call with me through the link in my bio, or you can sign up for coaching. So I do personal diet plans, personal training plans. I do daily coaching support and weekly coaching calls. Okay. In addition to that, I got members, right, that I work with as well through my Discord. I'm available to chat with people on a daily basis who are my members, right? So I'm very easy to get in contact with and get on calls with and talk to, right? So I'm not like your doctor who speaks to you, once every month or several months. Just, so I'm available on a daily basis to talk, right? So I'm both feet in. I also have courses, so my vegan nutrition course, and then I upload these live streams for my members to watch on a replay, as well as additional exclusive member content where I teach people these things as well, and I teach a lot of these things on my coaching calls. So I do one-on-one coaching calls. You can actually sign up for one of those coaching calls in the link in my bio. When you sign up for the call, make sure that you have your questions that you want to go over, your questions, topics, things like that, and come prepared to take notes. Because I give a lot of information, right? We talk about everything from mental, emotional wellness, diet, training, exercise, right? All that type of stuff. What foods to eat, how often, etc. Go through a full spectrum game plan to reverse chronic illness, because you do have to have a holistic strategy. There's not one food or three things you can eat that's going to do it. It encompasses a lifestyle change and a full spectrum plan. When I say full spectrum, I mean your lifestyle habits, exercise, food, what you drink, when you go to sleep, etc. Full spectrum. Because if you want to reverse an illness as quickly as possible, if you want to get healthy as quickly as possible, and you want to maintain the progress you've gotten, it takes a full spectrum approach. Right? So definitely you can get started with that through the link in my bio. So, just to share with y'all a little bit. So far, I've been able to help people reverse type 2 diabetes, get people off of their anxiety and depression medications, where we improve their mental health through diet and exercise and lifestyle. I've had people with gout to reverse gout, acid reflux, of course the weight loss, right? I've had people reverse PCOS, Hashimoto's, normalize their blood pressure, heal their gut to the point where they had better digestion. They were actually absorbing the nutrients from their food. Overcome food allergies to the point where they no longer have food allergies. Even me personally, I am healthier now in my 30s than I was in my 20s. I used to have extreme seasonal allergies to the point where my eyes were extremely itchy, to the point where all the pollen and stuff would shut my eyes, chronic migraines, headaches constantly, sinus infections repeatedly, unbelievable sinus pain where I felt like my teeth were going to fall out of my mouth. Like it hurt to have teeth. It hurt so bad, the sinus pressure, you don't understand. Even to the point where I was wheezing, where I couldn't breathe. It was like I had asthma. Right? That's how bad my allergies were. It reduced even my eyesight. Right? My eyesight was pretty bad at one point. Right? My eyesight now is better than what it used to be. So I only wear my glasses now when I'm working at the computer or whatever. Because walking around with my glasses on feels weird. I had mental and emotional health struggles for most of my life. So my mental and emotional stability and wellness is better now than it's ever been before. So these are just some of the things that's possible, right? There isn't really a chronic illness that you can't improve on and reverse and heal from. And you can do it at pretty much any age. You just need to be disciplined and consistent, relentlessly so. Do I sun gaze? That's an interesting question. When you say sun gaze, you mean stare directly into the sun? Because I definitely don't do that. I'm all about sun exposure, but I don't know about, to the point where it's blinding. What do I suggest for emphysema? Same thing I've been talking about tonight. Pretty much all chronic illness works in the same exact way through the same pathways. Well, not through the same pathways, but there's not a whole lot of difference between one and the other. So, like, for example, there's not a whole lot of difference between someone with... I'm trying to compare two different ones. There's not a whole lot of difference between someone with Crohn's, between someone with colitis, and diverticulitis. There's not a whole lot of difference between the two. They look different, but they're fundamentally caused by the same thing. So, like, the way that they're different is, like, let's say colitis and diverticulitis are different because one implies actual damage to the intestinal lining, where one is actually the inflammation of the diverticula, right? So they express themselves differently. Even like you have something like a Hashimoto's and PCOS, right? They're technically different, but caused pretty much by the same thing. It's that stress inflammation ladder, right? Your body is like a pole. There's this thing called homeostasis. Homeostasis is a leveling, it's a balancing. When you're in homeostasis, that means your load is balanced, right? All of your bodily functions, stress, all that type of stuff combined, all of the aspects of human life, you're encountering all of that, but you're stable, you're balanced. When you're off balance, you're out of homeostasis, and this is where health problems start. The longer you stay unbalanced, the worse things get. Because it's very fatiguing and draining to be unbalanced. So you want to get back into a state of homeostasis as quickly as possible, right? When you stay in homeostasis for longer, and you construct yourself around a diet and lifestyle that's conducive to that, that's when all of the pre-existing conditions, they start to fade, they start to go away. So you have genes that predispose you to certain illnesses, but the thing is that in order for those illnesses to present themselves, they have to be triggered. Those genes have to be activated. Now, you can activate certain genes and you can deactivate them, right? So you switch on and off, and that really depends on the conditions of your life, right? Whatever you've been doing, all of your lifestyle habits, environmental stressors, etc. Right? The only thing you can't fix is when you're missing a component. So, like, for example, you can't improve your thyroid function if you don't have a thyroid. Right? You can't reap the benefits of having a well-working thyroid without a thyroid. Right? You can't regrow an arm if you lose your arm. Now, you can rebuild and heal your arm, but if you lose the whole arm entirely, that's it. Even in brain matter, you can regrow new brain cells, but if a whole section of your brain dies off, to a significant degree, you can't really get it back. Because your body makes copies of pre-existing infrastructure, which means that those parts need to be there so that your body has something to copy. And your body can't copy something that's not there. All right, does that make sense? So it's kind of like an artist that can only draw something that they're currently seeing. Some people can draw from their mind and they don't have to have it in front of them. And then some people are artists and they have to draw something or paint something that they have visually in front of them that they can copy. Your body is a visual artist. So in order for your body to make something, it has to be something that it's exposed to already. This works even with pathogens. Your body can't build immunity to a virus it's never been exposed to. So you have to be exposed to it first, and then your body makes copies of it and mimics it and imitates it and learns it. That's what has to happen first. What about chronic kidney inflammation? Same thing, right? You can repair and heal your kidneys. People assume that you can't heal your kidneys if they're damaged beyond a certain point. In our medical community, people are more likely to say that because they haven't really seen it done. In order to heal your kidneys and to reverse kidney disease, the more of your kidney function you've lost, the longer it takes to get it back. Because your body has to chip away and build slowly and slowly and slowly, right? But it depends on how much of your kidney is lost, how much of those cells are lost. There has to be something to copy. As long as there's something to copy, well, you can get it back. Because even in your brain, somebody has a stroke and they lose functionality of like certain parts of their face or their arm. They can't write. They lose the dexterity in their hands. But if they train them, they can actually rebuild that nervous system infrastructure and get it back. But you got to be really, really consistent with it. Healing from something like kidney disease is the same exact thing. But if you lose those nerve endings altogether, it's probably a different story, right? Because you actually have to have something there to copy to rebuild on. So you have like your nervous system, and there's like these motor neurons and these nerve endings, and they don't touch, but they're pretty close to each other, and they reach out, and there's an electrical pulse that shoots across from one to the other. And the closer they get to each other, the more electrical energy is transferred between them. And as you keep stimulating those pathways, that functionality increases, right? You go from the rotary phone where you got to dial 0 and then put in the number, or you got to tell the operator the number you want to call, and they relay the call. And then you got a house phone with the cord, and now we got cell phones, and then we got extra towers, and then we go from 1G to 2 to 3G, 4G, 5G, right? That type of thing. That's kind of how it is with our infrastructure in our nervous system. It gets optimized over time. So you just got to be really consistent. And it works this way with your kidneys, your heart, liver, and your pancreas. Even when it comes to something like reversing type 1 diabetes, and they say, oh, you can't reverse type 1 diabetes. Well, it depends on how many of the healthy beta cells are left. And then it also depends on how much time you have to rebuild it. So, do you have the pieces to copy? And do you have enough time to copy them? And can you stay consistent enough with your lifestyle in order to create an environment where your body can make them and copy them? That's really the issues on the table there. But every time I do experience pain in my hand joints, can you maybe know why? It really depends. I couldn't tell you offhand. I'd have to ask you a bunch of other questions. I'd have to see what your diet looks like. I would have to see what limitations, what mobility limitations you have. Some people, they have maybe pain and numbness in their hands because they have a shoulder impingement, or they have an issue in their neck, right? So it could be something of that nature. I've had people where they had back pain, crazy back pain, and I'm like, how's your digestive function like? How often do you make a bowel movement? And they're like, oh man, I deal with frequent and constant constipation, right? So then basically we do, someone should eat these foods. So for example, kiwis. You can also supplement with magnesium citrate, and then they do that, and their body just lets all of that junk go that was piled up in their colon, right? And it just come out, boom, right? And they're like, oh my goodness, let me tell you something. I sat in the bathroom, I lost like 10 pounds, right? And they're like, wow, not only did I empty out my colon, but now I don't have back pain. Because the colon was so impacted to the point where it was touching a nerve that was creating back pain. So you can actually be so constipated that you end up having back pain where you think you herniated a disc. And really, you just needed to make a doo-doo. All right? How do we keep our thyroid function optimally any age? So a lot of times when it comes to like the hypothyroid and hyperthyroid, a lot of the times this doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with the actual thyroid gland, but more so with the pituitary gland and the liver, right? The people that in my experience, the people who've had the most issues when it comes to, like, for example, hypothyroid, they usually have some degree of fatty liver, right? Or an excess amount of iron stored up in their liver, right? Or they deal with chronic anxiety and depression, which then destabilizes their pituitary gland, right? So it could be any of these things. So it could be stuff that's going on in here that's affecting somewhere in between here, or it could be something going on in here that's having a trickle-up effect that's affected in here. Or it can be both, right? So going back to the wheel of the triad of human health: blood flow, blood quality, pH balance, alkalinity, gut microbiome. If you focus on those three things, that's pretty much the guarantee to maintaining healthy thyroid function, or just the overall, just optimally functioning metabolism. Am I a doctor? No, nutritionist. I don't do diagnosis. I don't do surgeries or prescribe medications. Right? I'm not qualified to do those things. I'm not qualified to operate medical equipment, things like that. Doctors do that type of stuff, right? So that's way out of my depth. But when it comes to nutrition, natural medicine, exercise, lifestyle adjustments in order to reverse chronic illness, that's more my wheelhouse. How do I feel about people claiming watermelon has too much sugar and to avoid it? People say the term too much sugar. Saying too much sugar implies a quantity. So if somebody says, oh, that's too much sugar, ask them, how many grams is too much sugar? I ask people that question all the time because me being a person who's always eating fruit bowls and stuff and talking about diabetes, they're like, oh, yeah, that's too much sugar. I'm like, well, how much sugar is too much? How do you calculate how much sugar is too much? What is the math that you're using to come to the answer that you're coming to? right? So far, I haven't really come across anybody who has an answer. One time, somebody said to me, they said 12 grams of sugar is too much. You know, 12 grams is probably the most ridiculous answer you can possibly give. Because then I basically said, well, 1 cup of blueberries is approximately twice that. So is a cup of blueberries too much sugar? And they didn't want to answer the question. Because they know they would look completely ridiculous and delegitimize themselves if they said that 1 cup of blueberries was too much sugar. So they became evasive and they just wouldn't answer the question. So all the other ones, they were smart enough to know to not give me a number. Because if you give me a number, well, then I'm going to do the math, and then I'm going to run that through a hypothetical and ask you questions. And you're going to either have to walk it back and change the number, or you're just going to have to duck out of the conversation and say, well, no, I was wrong. I actually don't know. Which would be more of an honest answer. So watermelon is like 80% water. The glycemic index of watermelon is somewhere in between, I want to say 70 and 80. The glycemic load is actually pretty low though, right? So that's because it's like mostly water anyway. So give me 1 second, y'all. All right. So if anything, watermelon isn't really bad for a diabetic because the glycemic load isn't really high enough to be bad for diabetics. That's number one. But it's a food that also helps to dilate your vascular system, and when you dilate your vascular system, that actually helps to drive down your blood sugar levels to a reasonable level. It's also loaded with potassium. It's got magnesium and fiber, and of course loaded with water, which are all things that also help to drive down your blood sugar level to a much more stable level. So you can't just say, oh, well, it has sugar in it, therefore it's bad, and completely dismiss all the other elements to it. That's a very crude approach to food, right? It's crude. Is watermelon a good diuretic? That's a good question. Is watermelon a good diuretic? I don't know if it's a good diuretic per se. I wouldn't say that. It can help to purge excess water in the body. I mean, it can do that. I guess that's what people use a diuretic for. So I guess technically it can do that. I don't know if that's enough for me to label it as a diuretic, but I guess you can probably make that claim. Yeah. So is eating nothing but fruit due to its sugar content bad? The sugar is not necessarily bad because the thing is you have to take into account all of the other elements of the fruit. Right? So yeah, sure, there's sugar, but the thing is there's also a whole bunch of other elements that regulate the sugar within the fruit. So you have to take all of that into account. It's a self-regulating food. But keto is 20 grams max sugar per day. Yeah. Well, I don't think that anybody trying to reverse chronic illness should necessarily be on a keto diet. I've had this conversation too with people who advocate for a keto diet. And I always say, can you explain how a diet dominated by saturated fat and cholesterol and protein reverses chronic illness? Now, what they could say is they could say, avocado has vitamin E and it has fiber and it has important essential fatty acids, EPA, blah blah blah. They can say all that. I'm like, well, yeah, well, avocado is a fruit, so I'm definitely a fan of that. It's plant based. I'm a big fan of avocados. What else? Well, you've got kale and spinach and mustard greens, and those things help. Well, yeah, I'm a big fan of those things. It's in a plant-based diet. It's a vegan diet, and it's in a raw vegan diet. Well, grass-fed beef is good for your health. Oh, really? What is it in grass-fed beef that reverses chronic illnesses? Well, grass-fed beef is it's got good quality proteins. Okay, well, Americans have an extremely protein-rich diet, but if you look at the health statistics, it seems like the more protein you consume as a population, the worse your health outcomes get. So we don't really have the scientific evidence that shows that increasing protein intake improves health. Well, it's a cholesterol-rich food, and cholesterol is needed in order to maintain your health. Well, that's true. It's a good thing the human body produces its own cholesterol. But what is intrinsic in the grass-fed beef that reverses chronic illness? Well, the grass-fed beef is rich in iron. Well, it is, yeah. I wouldn't say that that's a good thing that reverses chronic illness. There are scientific studies that show that having high levels of iron floating around in your bloodstream and your liver is problematic because it can actually bind free testosterone levels and cause men to actually have things like erectile dysfunction and impotence. It can destroy fertility. Right? Even the carnivore people have to cop to this. So they talk about, oh, well, what I do is I go to a phlebotomist and I get blood drawn. Oh, so you actually have to get blood removed from your body in order to lower the amount of iron floating around in your blood. Or you could just not load your body up with excess amounts of heme iron to cause the problem in the first place. So that can't be it either. So it's got to be something else. Plus, excess levels of iron increases the risk of iron oxidation in the body. Iron oxidation is rust. So now imagine you have an abundance of iron oxidizing in your body by being exposed to all types of free radicals, reactive oxygen species, that then, oxidize that iron and then cause it to be toxic to all the other cells in your body. That would actually cause chronic illness, not reverse chronic illness. So it can't be that. It's got to be something else. Well, grass-fed beef is rich in omega-3 essential fatty acids. Oh, really? Cows' bodies produce omega-3 essential fatty acids? Well, no, they don't, but it has to be grass-fed. Oh, why grass-fed? Well, because the farm-raised beef doesn't have omega-3. Why? What's so special about the grass? When they eat grass, what's the grass about? It's because the essential fatty acids are made inside the chloroplasts of plants. So if you want omega-3 essential fatty acids, well, you get that from plants. So there's no healing elements to the beef, right? There really isn't any. It's kind of like the thing they say, oh, well, with salmon, you get salmon is a good source of essential fatty acids, the omega-3s. Why? They got to be wild caught. Why wild caught? Can't be farm raised. It's got to be wild caught. What's the difference? Oh, because the wild one, they eat algae. Oh, the algae, with the green chloroplast thing, the green chloroplast that create the omega-3s. So it's the green chloroplast really that we need, right? Like in the kale, in the arugula, in the spinach, in the chia seeds, in the pumpkin seeds, etc., right? In the avocado, etc. So it's not the fish, right? The fish is not really an exclusive. That's not a thing about the fish, is it? No, it doesn't seem to be. Oh, it's good quality fats. What do you mean by good quality fats? Well, it's polyunsaturated fats. Oh, polyunsaturated fats. You mean like Brazil nuts? You mean like chia seeds, flax seeds? Those type of polyunsaturated fats. So it's not the fish, right? If you want polyunsaturated fats, you can just get it from plenty of nuts and seeds and whatnot in a plant-based diet. You can even get it on a raw vegan diet, so it can't be that. So all of the healing elements of a keto diet are plant-based. Has nothing to do with the meat at all. Right? And so I've had these conversations with people several times, and every time I have this conversation, it always turns out the same exact way. Oh, well, the sugar, when you consume sugar, it prevents your body from burning fat. No, it doesn't. That's not true at all. Now, if you have no glucose floating around your bloodstream, the only thing your body can do is burn fat because there's nothing else available to burn for fat. Because your body has to break down fat and convert it into glucose to use for energy. But if you consume glucose, your body still burns fat. This is why I'm able to have people on a plant-based diet. Oh, what? What's going on with my battery? Oh, oops. There we go. I have to plug in here right quick. All right. So, but where did I leave off at? What was I talking about? Huh? Oh yeah, that's why I'm able to have people on a plant-based diet loaded up with carbs and all types of sugars from fruit and lose weight and reverse diabetes and all of that. We don't cut carbs. We don't avoid sugar. So when I go and I post these videos and whatnot, and I got no shirt on and the abs is popping and stuff, and I'm just sitting up here eating all this fruit and stuff, all this sugary fruit. How come I'm not fat? All this sugar I'm eating, I should be getting fat, right? I shouldn't be able to get lean and burn fat. I shouldn't be able to do that. I'm constantly eating sugar. But what they don't take into account is the effects that fat burning has as far as potassium is concerned, right? You increase potassium, that increases your metabolism, which burns more fat. More magnesium contributes to more fat metabolism. More manganese contributes to more fat metabolism. Vitamin C contributes to fat metabolism. More prebiotic fiber and those short-chain fatty acids that the apple pectin produces in your gut increases fat metabolism. Reducing oxidative stress and inflammation increases fat metabolism. So you can't just look at the sugar and ignore everything else. It's a very crude way of looking at nutrition. Do you think a raw vegan diet can reverse fibromyalgia? Yes. Are whole grains okay? Yeah. Some are better than others. So I'm a fan of things like quinoa, rolled oats or still cut oats, wild rice, kamut, right? Things of that nature. Basmati rice. Generally, I try to stay away from gluten because gluten essentially is an adhesive, and it can congest your digestive tract a little bit, especially if you already have gut health issues. So I'm not too big on the gluten. This is why we need TikTok? True. You know, ironically, TikTok is like throttling my channel super hard. So I could be posting information like this and then you won't see it because TikTok hides it from my followers. So I don't know what that's about, but TikTok, I don't know. The algorithm don't like me. I'm doing very well on Instagram, though. For some reason, Instagram loves my content. But this is the world we live in, folks. The algorithm chooses your destiny. The algorithm chooses what you see and don't see. But we like you. Oh, I like y'all too. I appreciate that. That's why I show up religiously to talk to y'all every Tuesday and Thursday. Do I train any plant-based bodybuilders? No, well, it's not really. I don't really have too many plant-based bodybuilders because plant-based bodybuilders technically aren't struggling with chronic disease. I'd like to work with bodybuilders too, but my wheelhouse is chronic illness. So the people that I'm more inclined to work with are people who are dealing with chronic illness. Thoughts on legumes? I love legumes. I eat them every other day. I eat legumes Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Legumes are a full spectrum food. They got it all. Full vitamin, mineral, and amino acid profile. An abundance of carbs, protein. Legumes are amazing. My favorites are lentils, specifically red lentils. Chickpeas, black beans, and red kidney beans. Those are like my favorite ones. Oh, and soybeans, like edamame. I have Graves' disease. Please help. Hey, reach out, hit the link in my bio, request a call with me. Let's do it. Why don't I eat legumes every day? I don't eat cooked foods every day. So like today, I didn't eat any cooked foods today, right? It's just mostly just fruit and stuff today. Mung beans, that's another good one. I don't eat too many mung beans, but mung beans are good. What's the best diet for someone who's a diabetic? I'm going to go ahead and say raw vegan. Or at least high raw vegan. All right, folks. My battery has had it. And I had to finish eating my bowl and wrap up the stream for tonight. Appreciate everybody tuning in and coming to hang out with me. And I will catch y'all on the next live stream.